Good day, students. This is the third part of our Ecology of Population. We've talked about succession, we've talked about overpopulation, and this is the last phase, which has to do with food shortage. Now, what is food shortage? We know that the availability of food is a major sustaining factor of a population. For any population to be balanced, there have to be enough food. So when there is a decrease in food supply in the population, that is what we call food shortage. And there are several factors, both living factor and non-living factor, that can bring about food shortage. Now, what are the things that can cause food shortage? When we talk about food shortage, I will talk mainly on plants because you know that animals depend on plants. So the first is the adverse weather condition. When there is drought, you know that it will not be favorable for plants to grow. Then microorganisms can also infest plants, thereby reducing their yield. Even activities of pests like insects, like rodents, can reduce farm yield, thereby leading to food shortage. Even bushfire through human activities and natural disasters like earthquake, volcanic eruption, even population can also lead to food shortage. Now, this is the pictures of the effect of food, the causes of food shortage. You can see this is a drought land. No crop can grow in this place. So this is not a favorable condition. Eventually, people in this area will experience food shortage because there is no plants that can grow in this area. So what will animal depend on? Now, this shows microorganisms infesting a fruit crop. You can see that this has reduced the yield. The farmer cannot sell this to any farm. So eventually, if we have much of this on the farm, it will lead to food shortage. This is the activity of pests on plants, feeding or defoliating the plants, the leaves. So this will also eventually reduce the value of crops, leading to food shortage. This is flooding. No one can plant in this kind of area, and even if there are they've planted anything there, flood, the water has swept away everything. So this will reduce and eventually cause food shortage. Fire outbreak is another cause. When there's a fire outbreak, a lot of farm places will be destroyed, so it will lead to food shortage. Earthquake, like I've said the other time, can also lead to food shortage. So what are the effects of this food shortage? The overall effect is that there's a reduction in population size. When there is no food for the population, definitely the population will be reduced. And how will that reduction be? One, mortality. Mortality is death rate. Animals begin to die off. The mortality will increase because there is no food to sustain the population. There will also be competition, both within the same species and within different species. And survival of the fittest will be the only one that can maintain the population. So that is the effect of food shortage. Then the rate of reproduction will reduce. When there is no food, animals will be reluctant to breed. There's no favorable condition for them. And eventually, they will result into emigration. They leave that particular habitat to another place. And unlike migration, they don't even return back there because they are in search for a favorable environment and where the food is abundant for them to breed. So we need to talk about balance in nature. How do nature itself cope with all these changes? Now, we know that in a living component of the ecosystem, which is made up of populations, the biotic factor, can be stabilized. There's a way the nature itself brings about some of the biotic and abiotic factor to contribute to balance in nature. When I talk about the biotic factors, I'm talking about natality, mortality, parasitism. The nature itself are just within these things: emigration, predation, competition, disease. dispersal and territorial behavior. We've already talked about all this. So the nature can utilize all these biotic factors to bring about a balance in population. Then they can also use abiotic factor like the light. Abiotic, they are non living factor: light, temperature, oxygen, water, food, and availability of space. They can also maneuver within all these abiotic factors to maintain a balance in population. So some of these factors that we have talked about can be density independent, and others can be density dependent. Now, what do I mean by density independent factors? These are factors that affect the growth of a population, whatever the population density may be. They are not concerned about the population density. Either it is high or it is low. They just affect the population. Like we talk about sudden change in weather condition, fire outbreak, flooding. eh? And this can also cause death of members of a population. So they can bring a drastic effect on population size. They can make it high or low. They are not considering population density. So those factors which cause population density can crash drastically the density independent factor. So they are density independent factors. Now, the density dependent factors, they consider the population size. They consider the population density before affecting population. So these are the, like we talk about availability of food. When population is high, definitely the food resources will be low. You can see that it is dependent on each other. So in nature, both these dependent factor and independent factor control population size. There's a way these two factors can control population size. Now we need to talk about human population growth. How do human population grows? Now, as the population of the people on the earth increases year in, year out, there should be a supply of basic amenities like water, like sunlight, that is necessary to produce food. So, and we know that our planet is limited by all these things. There's a limited number of people that the planet can support. So if the rate of population growth remains unchecked, the world will have to supply as many more services in terms of food, houses, school, and hospitals. Let's say now that we have a place that people are just trooping in. We need to continually supply the amenities they need to grow in that, to survive in that area. So when that is cannot be possible, when the amenities cannot be provided, we do not have choice than to face problems like famine, like diseases, like decreased life expectancy. So that means human being needs to plan the family. We need to know how to reduce human population, because if we leave the population unchecked, then population will begin to increase, and the basic amenity needed for the population to sustain will not be provided. So human being needs to plan the family. Naturally, the population are controlled by increasing death through wars, through famine, disaster, and the rest. But now it appears that, however, this natural method for controlling populations, they are inadequate. We cannot depend on the natural method. We also need to make deliberate effort to decrease birth rates through family planning by using birth control methods. I want to say now that family planning has to do with the ability of individual and couples now particularly, to anticipate and attain their desired number of children, and the spacing and timing of their births. When I decide that, okay, I want to have like 3 children, I want to have 2 children, and I want to space them. I don't want to have a child that is up to just 6 months and I'm pregnant of another one. That is family planning. So we can achieve that by choosing different birth control methods. Now we will see this diagram that teaches us about child spacing. How many children do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can see that even those trainers, they are not dependent. They cannot even, they are not well catered for. You can see the mother is even pregnant of another one. But this is a happy family whereby the husband and the wife, they already have two children. They might still have more, but they have spaced them. The children, they are independent of them. They don't have to carry anyone on their back, hold one on their hand, carry the other one, or tie here to carry the other one like this. So this is really, really necessary to reduce the human population. So how can we achieve these family planning methods? These are the several birth control methods. We can use birth control methods. Now, the birth control methods, they are just a way to achieve family planning. So there are several methods that can prevent conception. Any method that can prevent conception is birth control method. And conception is fertilization of an egg by sperm. So when we prevent that from happening, it is a birth control method. Now, those methods can also be called contraceptive methods, and they can be natural or artificial. When it is natural, we say that it can be abstinence. There is no sexual intercourse, which we preach for you children, you students at this age. No sexual intercourse, abstinence, so that you will not have children that you cannot cater for, or you have a population that you are not ready for. You understand? So abstinence is what we preach for students. Then we can also use RIM, intercourse during safe periods. The couple decide to use a safe period by following the ovulation cycle of the woman to have intercourse. Then there's another one that is called male withdrawal or coitus interruption. That is, the man decides to pull out and ejaculate outside the woman. These are natural, these three major ways are natural methods of birth control. Then most of these methods, except abstinence, they are unreliable because sometimes you can never know what will happen. So they are unreliable. You cannot totally depend on them. They are not enough for birth control methods. So the artificial birth control methods include the use of condom, which is like a barrier, protective barrier that prevents the penis from releasing sperm into the vagina. Then we have the diaphragm. The woman uses a cap or a ring to prevent the sperm from getting into the uterus. Then you have the spermicide cream that kills the sperm so that the sperm will not be able to fertilize the egg. And there's another one that is called the intrauterine devices, IUCD. That is also used by the woman. And it has to be carefully inserted by a knowledgeable person, a doctor or a nurse. They insert it into the uterus. That causes irritation to the lining of the uterus and prevents implantation of the fertilized ovum. So when there is no implantation, even if there is fertilization and the baby cannot be implanted into the uterus, it will eventually come down as blood and there will not be conception. Sterilization is another artificial method whereby the male is sterilized. The sperm ducts are being cut at two ends and they are being tied together to prevent sperm from passing out. So the man enjoys sex without releasing sperm, which has the ability of fertilizing the egg. There is another one that is also female fertilization, which involves the cutting of the oviduct. We know the oviduct is like a passage that carries the egg from where it is released into the uterus. And that is where fertilization takes place. So they cut the end of the uterus and tied it together. So that can also be called tubal ligation. So instead of female sterilization, I can call it tubal ligation. So those ones are permanent birth control methods. They cannot be reversible. So people that have already decided the number of children that they want to give birth to can use that when they are through with childbearing. Then the last one I'm discussing here is hormonal contraceptives. Female steroid hormone are used as oral contraceptive pills or as injections. Example is the Depo-purine infection. So those ones are implanted into the body to prevent contraception. So these are the various methods that we already discussed. We have said that, okay, the IUCD is one of the very effective method. Then the implantation, this is one of the hormonal method, whereby the injection is implanted into the body. Then this is also okay, the hormonal ring, the diaphragm, the oral contraceptives, then the contraceptive injections. Then the ones that they are not really reliable, you can use them with other methods, the diaphragm, the condom, the pulling out, or the tracking of the menstrual cycle that we said use of safe period. So this method can be combined, and they can be used individually, but there are some methods like this one, we cannot totally rely on them. Okay, so these are so far we have talked about food shortage, what can cause food shortage, like we talk about droughts, we talk about infestation of microorganisms, pests and diseases, flooding and natural disaster like fire, earthquake and the rest of them. We talk about the effects, mortality, emigration and so on. We also talked about how the nature, balance in nature, how the nature itself balance population, which we said that some factors can be population density dependent and some factors can be density independent. And that takes us to human population. So talking about human population, we said that controlling human population, we said that human being must deliberately control human population by family planning. So we talk about various methods of family planning, and I hope you'll be able to answer those questions. Thank you for the audience.